There are two major song forms in contemporary musical theater that you need to know and not nearly enough people are talking about. In fact, so few people are talking about this that they don't have an agreed upon standard name. For our purposes today, we are going to call them the Macro-AABA and the Micro-AABA. Yes, they are based upon the idea of the 32-bar chorus AABA, but they are different. These forms are flexible and they are grounded and they allow easily for flexibility in writing for contemporary musical theater vocal stylings. So I think it's safe to say that you're not going to want to miss out on knowing these and using these. So let's get to it. Okay, so what are the macro and micro structures in musical theater? Great question. Yes, they are indeed based on the same 32-bar chorus structure, the AABA, but the macro is extended and the micro is shrunk down. They are pretty similar in the way that they work in comparison to the 32-bar versions. So if you need a refresher on the 32-bar AABA, head back to the beginning of this series because this is number 3 of a 4-part series and we will be continuing from here. So get that initial info. Now in terms of the macro structure, I don't know who created it, but I do think that Jason Robert Brown is probably the composer who made it the most famous or was the most prolific with it. So let's dive into the macro first and we will again use examples as we go through. This time not from my own work, you're welcome. So because these are broader structures and we're not stuck in 8-bar sections, we have more time, more flexibility, the ability to say more things, to expand the music, to expand the lyric, and yet also deliver the main idea of the song and the hook in our A sections, just like we did in the 32-bar. But because they are extended sections, they do kind of wrap up in and of themselves, which gives you the opportunity to put interludes between your sections or to put dialogue if you want to, scene work, you do all sorts of crazy things. Okay, let's break this down today with Jason Robert Brown's A Summer in Ohio from the last 5 years. I think one of my favorite examples. So we have this: I could build a mansion on a hill. I could lease a villa in Seville, but it wouldn't be as nice as A Summer in Ohio with a gay midget named Carl playing Tevye and Porgy. So that's our first A section. How many bars is it really? Well, it's actually 8, but it's because it feels a little longer, right? That is a section unto itself. Musically, it wraps right back up. And you get to the end of Porgy and you're like, oh yeah, I feel like we've bought kind of like a little interlude moment. Why not? So, is it extended in terms of the feel, less the number of actual literal bars? Because remember, the bar number doesn't really matter here, friends, okay? So, I will also just point out, hey, there's some words in here that are not okay anymore. We know that now. But here they are, they exist in the song. So we're moving on to our second A. We're gonna really add to the argument here, and it's a silly argument. She's kind of playing a game with it, but it is an argument at the end of the day that nothing is better than A Summer in Ohio, the name of the song, right? So that is our hook. Let's add more to it, because it is a macro AABA, and that is how that structure goes. We have: I could wander Paris after dark, take a carriage ride through Central Park, but it wouldn't be as nice as A Summer in Ohio, where I'm sharing a room with a former stripper and her snake, Wayne. Cute, right? We're gonna go on and do our B section. So what do we have here? The same general concept as far as how we're playing with this idea. The vehicle of the song is, hey, Ohio sucks in the summer. I don't want to be here. But it's wrapped up in the idea of what could be better than A Summer in Ohio? It's very sarcastic, right? So we have, I could wander Paris after dark, take a carriage ride through Central Park, but it wouldn't be as nice as A Summer in Ohio. Lies. Where I'm sharing a room with a former stripper and her snake, Wayne. A joke, right? We extend a little bit. The ending of it's different. It tells us we're gonna move on to something else though, right? We've gotten the idea across. It does develop musically, but honestly, my friends, I can't play this well enough today to make it not sad for JRB. We move on after former stripper and her snake, Wayne. We go into our B section. This is an extended B feel. It will not be 8 bars. And then it's going to fall on back to our A section. just like we did before in the previous structure. We have, I could have a satchel full of dollar bills, cures for all the nation's ills, pills to make a lion purr. I could be in line to be the British Queen, look like I was 17. Still, I'm certain I'd prefer to be going slowly batty 40 miles east of Cincinnati. Okay, that's a lot longer, right? But it feels like we earned the B section, right? We said a lot of things in those A sections, so now we've earned this thing. What are we doing? It's different, right? Musically, very different. Lyrically, very different. We're saying what I could have, right? I could have this, and this, and this, and this, and this, and this. And none of it would be nearly as good as being here. Right, we're kind of like taking the lid off of the game that we were playing within this thesis, which is nothing's better than a summer in Ohio, the worst thing ever, right? So much so that we get that cute little fall that recapitulates us into our final A here. Prefer to be going slowly batty 40 miles east of Cincinnati. I could shove an ice pick in my eye. I could eat some fish from last July, but it wouldn't be as awful as a summer in Ohio without cable, hot water, Vietnamese food, or you. We finally get to it. What is it? Once we've taken the mask off this and we say, it's terrible, I could shove an ice pick in my eye, eat some fish from last July. These are not good things, right? So we've actually said the thing now. But what does a summer in Ohio represent? Oh, I'm away from you, my love. And that's how this structure works. It's the same thing, but it really takes its time. It adds a lot of different flavors in. You have more flexibility in the music, in the lyrics, extended sections. But one of these is not enough. There's so much more to do. And as we often do in contemporary musical theater, we have an interlude section that's long and extends us through other things to a big belty moment. And then we will recapitulate back and we do a new version of the B and a new extended version of the final A. So it is like taking that 32 bar chorus form and blowing it out to something big that essentially is doing the exact same thing, but with more flexibility. And as you can hear, it sounds very talkative and like contemporary musical theater singing styles are useful here. And that's how this one works. My friends, if you like talking nerdily about this stuff, then come have a 30-minute free call with me, because you can join us for nerdy discussions in the Musical Theater Writing Collective or one of the courses that I teach, and very happy to point the way toward whatever kind of nerdyisms you would prefer. But I won't know that unless I get a chance to meet you. So book a free 30-minute call with me in the description below, and let's see what I can do to point you in your best direction. Now we're gonna move to what I call the Macro-AABA. But the fun thing here is we're actually gonna do it in a macro structure. What? Both at once? I know. Why? So the idea here is essentially the same as the 32 bar structure, but we've shrunk it down. In fact, it usually comes in 16 bar chunks. So instead of 8 bar sections, they are 4 bar sections. But there are two major uses to the micro version of the AABA. One of them is to do it in either a kind of montage-y musical scene sort of thing, where it is a refrain, and there's scene work, and a refrain, and that refrain is always the 16 bar section. Or to use that 16 bar section as essentially the A section of a Macro-AABA. What? Boom. What? Just blown. Whoa, mind. Oh. But actually my mind was blown when I first realized that this was a thing you could do. What? What? That's structure within structure. It's genius. Now, obviously, the A sections of the micro still need to have a hook to them. So when you're looking at it in terms of either that kind of like chorusy feel or as a section within a macro, we're not gonna hit the hook every single A section in a lot of cases. In the case we are going to look at here, we do, which kind of gives it that ABAB feel, but it's not, right? So we're just making sure people understand what the song is about as we move through. But whenever you have restatement opportunities for your hook, it helps to provide clarity to the audience about what the song is about. It just means you have to be super efficient with all of your real estate. like we always have to. It's musical theater after all. All right, so the example we're gonna look at here is where we use a Macro-AABA structure as the A section of a Macro-AABA. Is the song A Fine Fine Line from Avenue Q. And we have multiple statements of the hook here, but we have this 16 bar feel. There's a fine, fine line between a lover and a friend. That's 4 bars. And now we're gonna do another one of those. There's a fine, fine line between reality and pretend. So we're gonna move on now, right? It's a restatement, and now our ear is longing for something new. And you never know till you reach the top if it was worth the uphill climb. And that's a C minor chord, I know. Now we're gonna wrap it up with one more little A here, but the A is gonna sound a little different because this, again, it feels like a structure unto itself. It's its own little section. So how are we gonna wrap it up? We just went up here. Da 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 da. It's begging to go higher. There's a fine, fine. Oops, sorry. There's a fine, fine line between love and the point of it, and a waste of time. So it really functions the same way as a full 32 bar AABA, but we do it so fast. But because we do it so fast, we haven't said nearly enough. We have to keep going with the song. And they very smartly use it as the A section to a macro, which means we're gonna do one of those again, and it will lead us to a B section, somewhere different. Now, if you notice here, we have this little music interlude, but clearly we need to go back to this A structure, and we're gonna do that in a second. This follows the same pattern though, as far as the creating of a thesis, the adding of information, the taking us somewhere new, the refreshment, the doubling down, the raising of stakes, all that stuff that we talked about in the first video in this series is still true. But we're just gonna do it in this macro and micro sense both. There's a fine, fine line between a fairy tale and a lie. And there's a fine, fine line between your wonderful... So we're doing the same thing again, right? It's another 8 section. When we get to the end of this one, that we have this, and a waste of your time. Now we have to say more. We get a B section. It's a macro B. We have, and I don't have the time to waste on you anymore. I don't think that you even know what you're looking for. For my own sanity, I've gotta close the door and walk away. Whoa, now we have to go back. There's a fine, fine line between together and not, right? And this wraps up the song. So you can see how the micro within the macro, both of them playing together, create a song structure that is so cohesive and so efficient, so good at what it's trying to do. It really leads your audience through the argument that it is so brilliant and effective. This is a wonderful set of structures here. You should use them both. Try them in different combinations. Try the macro and then add the micro into it, or try the macro without the micro. Try the micro without the macro. All the combinations, do them all. But this one, the combo platter of having the micro within the macro is, I think, my favorite. I have not used it much myself, but when I hear a contemporary musical theater song that does it, that's usually the one where I'm like, oh, that was good. I see what you did. That was wonderful. Good for you. These structures automatically work because they feel like musical theater. We're familiar with 32 bar chords. We're familiar with AABA, and it takes it and it repurposes it, puts a tweak on it in a way that feels contemporary, feels talkative, feels like it's very relatable. It works so well. And the other thing I want to point out is because 32 bars is not a lot of time, that can feel overwhelming to try to be as efficient as you need to be. And this provides you with more flexibility, more time. You can even structure the miniature within the micro, so you always know exactly where you're headed when you're writing. It's a lot harder to get overwhelmed in the process. They're so useful. But here's the warning. Because they are a bit less strict, you can meander very easily. You can add too much in. You can go too far afield. You can lose sight of what your song's doing. Your song could ultimately be about more than one thing, and that makes it not clear to the audience. We want to avoid that at all costs. And 16 bars for the micro is a lot less time than the 32 bars, so you have to be even more precise in that structure. So yeah, there's still pitfalls along the way here, my friends. Now you might be wondering about the elephant in the room, the other major contemporary musical theater song structure, pop song structure. And if you want to learn how that structure comes into play, then you should watch the 4th video in this series next, right up over here. Otherwise, thank you all for being here with me today, and I'll see you again soon. Cheers!